The Utah legislature is holding a special session this week on Wednesday, and one of the things that the Republican supermajority plans to do is use a newly passed state law to block new federal regulations that aim to protect transgender students in schools. Title IX is a federal law that bans any discrimination based on sex in K-12 schools, colleges, and universities that receive federal funding. Earlier this year, the Biden administration issued new guidelines that expanded Title IX to include gender identity and sexual orientation. And because of that, the new rules would require schools, colleges, and universities to allow transgender students to use bathrooms and locker room facilities that align with their gender identity. Those updated guidelines are in direct conflict with a new Utah state law that requires people to use bathrooms and locker rooms at state facilities that correspond with the gender they were assigned at birth. To push back against those new federal guidelines, Utah lawmakers are going to attempt to use a newly passed state law, SB 57, which is also known as the Utah Constitutional Sovereignty Act. That law created a process for the state to attempt to circumvent federal laws and regulations that lawmakers believe are unconstitutional. Under this process, the legislature can pass a resolution declaring that a federal action violates the Constitution. If that's successful and it passes, state agencies and officials would be ordered to either ignore the new federal law or regulation or just not comply, and that would go on until a federal court orders the state to implement the new law. And that inverts the current process where individual states sue the federal government to block laws, rather than forcing the federal government to sue Utah to make them implement a law. Several states have tried this before. It's a concept known as nullification. But the United States Supreme Court has repeatedly held that individual states do not have the authority to declare federal actions unconstitutional. Republicans have a supermajority in both chambers of the Utah legislature, so you can expect the proposed resolution to pass during the special session on Wednesday, and that could set up a showdown with the Biden administration if they decide to sue the state over these new Title IX regulations.